Hi everyone. Today we're going to learn how to create a dark mode component in React. So our dark mode component is going to use CSS variables to update the theme colors in our application from the values that we set for light mode and the values that we set for dark mode. So to do this, we're going to use just a basic React application. Quickest way to do that is just run create React app. So I've got an empty folder here in VS Code, and I've got my terminal open. I'm going to run npx create React app. I'm going to call it dark mode demo, let's say, and I'm going to use a TypeScript template. So while that's booting up, we can talk a little bit about how it's going to work. So we want to create a toggle button. And we want that toggle button to respect the user's browser preference. So in modern browsers, you can actually set whether you prefer, whenever you visit a website, light mode or dark mode. So by default, what our app is going to do is it's going to begin by checking to see if the user has hit the toggle button before. So if they've used our app before and they've set it to dark mode, we want it to always be in dark mode. If they've manually set it to light mode, we want it to always be in light mode. If they haven't used the app before or they haven't used the toggle, then it will default to whatever the preference is on their browser. So if they prefer dark mode, then our app will start up in dark mode. And if it doesn't find either one of those things, if they haven't used it before and they have no preference, then it will default to light mode. So here's our React app that was created with the create React app command. I'm just going to change the directory into that. Dark mode demo. Okay, and I'll boot it up. We'll use npm run start. So what that's going to do is it's going to boot up the example application. So here we can see that by default, create React app actually runs in dark mode. Okay, so let's just get that, put it to the side here. So before we create our dark mode component, we're going to start writing the CSS that we'll need for our component. So inside of our source directory, I'm going to create a file called darkmode.css. And this is the CSS that's going to be imported by our dark mode component. I'm going to create a root selector. This will select the highest level, the root of our application, and everything in here will be available to the whole application. And this is where we're going to create the color values for our light mode. So we're going to need background color for the text, and I'm going to do link color as well. Because we've got this link here with the sample React app. So to create a variable in CSS, simply start it with 2 hyphens, and we're going to do background color and do link color. So bear with me, I've just got it right here. So what I've called them is I've called it font color. So for light mode, we have a dark font, we have a background color that's close to white, and we have a link color that's cornflower blue. Nice, fun color name there. Okay, so I'm going to save that. So that will be the default. Those values are set at the root level. What we need next is to set the dark mode values of those colors that will overwrite those, but will only overwrite them if we have set our app to dark mode. So the way that we do that is we use a selector, an attribute selector, that looks like this. So data theme is an attribute that we're going to put on the HTML element whenever we set our app into dark mode. And now that we've set those colors, we need to apply them to our app. So the color and the background color are going to be the color and background of the body. The body will be the background of the entire app, and color will be inherited by any text elements that we use, like p tags, for example. So body and I'm going to set background color equal to my background color variable and color equal to my font color variable. And that looks like this. So var and then the name of your CSS variable. And I'll do the same for links as well. So the anchor selector, the color will be whatever the link color is. By default, cornflower blue. If we set our app to dark mode, then that value will become light blue. So we can save that for now. And now we can create our dark mode component. So I'm going to create a new file, darkmode.tsx. This is our React component. I'll grab what I've set up here and then we'll explain kind of how it works piece by piece. So I'm going to hide this for the time being. Doesn't want to disappear. There it goes. So we're importing our dark mode CSS. So if you're using Create React App, this will work right out of the box. If you're not using Create React App, you'll need Webpack and CSS loaders to get this kind of functionality, the ability to import CSS files into your JavaScript. So we're importing these styles that we just wrote. We're creating a component called dark mode. And this is going to be the structure of our component. So we have a div wrapper for it, toggle theme wrapper. What this is going to be, it's going to be a flex element. It's going to flex in the row direction so that we have the sun, little sun emoji. We have our toggle slider, and then we have the moon emoji. So we can click the slider back and forth, and it will go from light mode to dark mode. We have a label for our checkbox. We have the checkbox itself, and then we have what you'll see commonly for custom style checkboxes is that we overwrite them with another element that looks different. In our case, it's going to be a toggle slider, but what's happening when you click on it is that you're actually clicking on the checkbox underneath. So I've taken some example code just from doing a quick Google search. If you do a Google search for like custom toggle checkbox, then it'll be probably the first result from W3 Schools showing how to just create a custom checkbox. So I'm not going to go over how that works in this tutorial. You can get the code from the GitHub repository that's in the YouTube video description. And you can go through it yourself if you want to understand what's going on. I haven't even really dug into it too much myself. We just wanted to get a nice custom toggle button. So that's where this comes from. So I'm just going to copy those styles for the custom toggle, and I'm going to put them below my dark mode variables. So I paste this here. So I'll go really quickly through it just so you understand. So the wrapper for toggle theme wrapper, that's this div right here, the one that has the sun, the toggle switch, and the moon. That's the one that needs to be a flex box with the row direction, and it's going to put a 4 pixel gap in between them. 28 pixel font size, this is for the span, so that's the emojis, giving them a 28 pixel font size, and everything else is related to the custom toggle button. So if you want to see how that works, I'll save this. I'll save my CSS. Now we don't have anything, you notice with the input, the checkbox, nothing happens when we click on it. So I'm going to put it in our app just to see how it looks, but at this moment it's not going to do anything yet. So I'll go to the app. So that's the component for what we're seeing here in the demo on the right. And I'm going to add this dark mode component that I just created, import it and save, and we'll see this is what it looks like. So again, I didn't go over how all the CSS works for the custom slider. You can grab it from the GitHub repository in the description on this video, and you can clone this entire project from the repository and play with it yourself if you like. So back to the component. So we've got it in our app, but it doesn't do anything. So we'd like it to do something. So how do we do that? So what we need it to do is when we toggle it, we need it to apply this data theme equals dark attribute on the root HTML element of our app, and when it does that, it will change all of these, all of these colors to these colors. Now you may notice right now that it should be in light mode. We should have this as the background color, we should have this as a font color, and we don't see that. And the reason that we don't see that is because the default styles for Create React App are overriding it. So I'm going to go into app.css and look for anywhere that the default styles are setting the color. Here in the app header, it's setting the background manually, setting the font manually, and the link manually, and I'm just going to comment those 3 values out. So now what it should do is use the styles that we've set for our dark mode. So font color, background color, and link color. So I can double check that font color with Firefox. If I go up here, I go to More Tools, I go to the eyedropper, I hover over my font, I get 3333, 3333. So great, my font's working. So what's next? We need to implement the actual code that toggles. So we're going to use JavaScript for that. So we want to start with a couple of functions. I want to make a set light and set dark function, and all these are going to do is set the app to light mode and set the app to dark mode, and they're not going to be connected to anything yet, but that way that we have some easy functions to call when we start making the more complex stuff afterward. So what these are going to look like, taking them from my own tutorial, so there's a couple little comments in here. Oh, forget this part for the moment. We'll start with just this. So we have a function called setDark. What does it do? It sets, if you've used local storage before, this saves a value in your browser so that even when you refresh or close and come back to the app, you'll be able to retrieve this value. So whenever we set the dark theme, it saves the theme as dark inside browser storage in local storage, and it sets the attribute on the document element, that's our HTML tag, data theme equal to dark. So that, once that is set, our CSS selector here, when data theme equals dark, these color variables are applied. And then light mode is just the opposite. In local storage, set the theme to light and set the data theme to light. So let's give it a try. So our app is in light mode now. Before the component is even rendered, I'm going to call setDark. And the reason this works even before the component is rendered is because we're targeting the document element. So that's going to be there as soon as the app is loaded. We're not targeting any element that's in here. So that allows us to invoke this as soon as this file is loaded. So let's save and see what happens. There's dark mode. So what if we set dark mode? Can we set it back to light mode afterwards? Yes, we can. So our dark mode and our light mode functions work well. Now, how do we attach those to the toggle? So to attach them to the toggle, I'm going to create, so we're going to want to put it to the onChange attribute of our input. So whenever this is changed, that's a change event. So we're going to need a function that goes on the onChange event of our input checkbox. So that's particularly relevant because this is one of the few places where TypeScript kind of comes into play. If we're making a event handler, I'm going to use the change event handler type that comes from React. And what type of change event is it? It's an HTML input element because we're using this HTML input element. So what happens? We take the event as an argument. The target of the event is the input element. So whenever, whenever we change it, if it's checked, that's dark mode. If it's not checked, that's light mode. So I'll take this function and I'll add it to my onChange. OnChange equals toggle the theme. Format. Save. Let's see. Look at that. Working pretty well. So are we done? Pretty close. We haven't done anything yet with the prefers dark theme, what we talked about, the browser preferences when we started, and we haven't done anything yet with, we haven't loaded their existing preferred setting from local storage if they come back. So if I say, oh, I like dark mode, and then I refresh my page, see, we're in light mode. That's not what we want. We want it to stay in dark mode because I already specified that I want dark mode. So the last piece of that is going to look like this. I'll put it here. So our stored theme, we create a variable called stored theme, and it's going to equal to whatever we saved in local storage, equal to theme. So if we get a value from that, if they've used the app before, we're going to get a string. That string is going to be either light or dark. Or if we've never used the app before, it's going to be null. Prefers dark checks to see if our browser supports match media for CSS media queries. And if it does, we're going to check, do they have the prefers color scheme dark value set in their browser? Dot matches. So this variable will be Boolean, and it will tell us true if the user has their browser set to prefer dark mode, or false if they don't. And then, once we have those values, we decide whether we want to set the app into dark mode whenever it's loaded up. So the two conditions that we do is, first, if the stored theme is dark. So if they've used the app before and they've manually set it, that's the most important. So yes, we want to default to dark. The other condition where we would default to dark is if they've never used the app before, stored theme is null, and their browser prefers dark mode. So this value will tell us whether we should set our app to dark mode when we load it. And then all it takes is a simple if statement. If we should default to dark, then set it to dark mode. So I'm going to take that, save it. Notice I'm in dark mode. So toggle dark mode, refresh, stays in dark mode. Toggle light mode, refresh, stays in light mode. Nope, but I notice, look at that. See how I refresh the slider, so the slider doesn't respect it. I missed one piece here. The default to dark mode needs to be set the checkbox value. So checkboxes have a default checked, and if it's checked, it means we're in dark mode. So the value of default checked, true or false, should be the value of whether we want to default to dark mode, true or false. So format that, refresh, dark mode, and our toggle is on. Turn it off, light mode, and our toggle is off. Now how do we test if the user prefers dark mode? So this one's a little bit trickier. Check the video description for the blog post, and I'll explain how to do it in both Chrome and Firefox. Right now we're using Firefox, so I'll just be showing how to do it in Firefox for this video. So we open up, so if you're in Firefox, you can go to About, Config, Accept the Risk and Continue, and search for dark. Now this, by default, this will not be here. I've created this myself. So what you need to do is you need to type UI.system uses dark theme in camel case. It will give you, the first time you do it, it will give you an option to create it as a string, a number, or a Boolean. We want it to be a number. So notice here that I have this value as a number. 0 means light mode, and 1 means prefers dark mode. So I'm going to say OK. Notice my whole browser itself goes into dark mode. Now, the second part is, because I've already used this toggle slider, my preference is going to be, it's going to listen to whatever I use here. So I'm going to open up my DevTools. I'm going to go to storage, and I'm going to go to local storage for the site, and I'm going to delete the value in local storage that saved my personal preference. So close the DevTools. Now this app should behave as if I'm a user coming to it for the first time. There's no stored value. I've never clicked this toggle before. Local storage has been cleared. So when I refresh, it should default to dark mode because that's what my browser prefers. And it does. That's awesome. So that pretty much covers how to make a dark mode component in React. So you can take this with you and place it anywhere in any application, as long as the application supports importing CSS. Importing CSS. Then it should work in just about any app, presuming the app doesn't overwrite your body styles and your link styles, but you can customize this CSS to fit whatever needs you have. And check out the video description. There's a link to a blog post that this video is based on that I wrote, and in that blog post I will also go over how to add some tests for this component to test whether clicking it actually is turning on dark mode, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Hope you liked the video. Any questions, post any comments, and I'm happy to try and help out. Have a great day.